Crime in the country continuing to rise, and it seems not much is being done to curb it. It's part of our focus this morning. Recent stats showing horrifying cases around the country are continuing to increase, including rape, assault and murder. All of that jumping between January and March of this year. There's also a perception that high-profile cases are dealt with more effectively. Well, let's get the views and the thoughts then of criminal law expert William Booth joining us this morning. Hello to you, William. Always good to have you on ENCA. So let's talk about perception versus reality. Are high-profile cases getting more of the resources, or is that just a misconception?
If one looks at the statistics, Gareth, and good morning, yes, you're probably correct. But having said that, all cases should get the same attention from the police and from the NPA. And I suppose high-profile cases are out in the media, and the reason being, well, they make interesting reading and they make interesting showing. So TV cameras are in courts where those cases involving prominent people are dealt with. But if one looks at the statistics, clearly there is something that is wrong. Why is crime just rising all the time? Where should the funds be spent? Policing is a problem. There was a recent article, I think, in yesterday's Sunday Times, where it showed pictures of certain police stations in South Africa, which were horrific. And if one looks at investigation of certain offences, the police don't seem to be on top of their game, because a lot of these offences are not being adequately investigated. So, yes, there are huge problems. The money needs to be spent right across the board, not just with investigating offences involving high-profile incidents. The situation with regard to the investigation of state capture matters, that seems to be lagging. And one can say, well, those are high-profile, but those need to be dealt with. But at the same time, your offences not involving prominent people also need to be dealt with. So I think there has to be a re-look at the whole issue. Where is the money being allocated? Why are there problems with investigation of cases? And why are certain cases taking so long to come to court?
And I think, unfortunately, William, you've picked up on three major issues within the SAPS and the way that crime is being handled right now. So if we were to look at one of the comments that you made, that even within police stations, that there doesn't seem to be much urgency in getting cases looked at. That isn't a lack of capacity. That looks more like a lack of willingness, if I understood you correctly. There's problem one, isn't it?
Well, it's a question of willingness, but it's also a question of that there are too many cases being allocated, let's say, to an individual detective to investigate. That detective doesn't have the facilities, he may not even have a vehicle to go to a crime scene. So, it's the willingness, it's the providing better input with regard to crime investigation. More money needs to be spent on crime investigation. Our laboratories are lagging. The forensic aspect is a serious problem. Why are cases being struck off court rolls? Because investigation is incomplete and it's taken far too long. So, it's sort of a multifaceted problem that needs to be addressed. Often you find police complaining about the salaries they receive. So if they're not getting paid, if they're working long hours, well, there is going to be a problem with the willingness.
And that is going to have the knock-on effect to your other point as well, isn't it, William? That's why these court cases take so long to actually get underway. And then we see these continuous and constant delays once we are at a court case. And I'm not even talking about high-profile ones. We're talking day-to-day cases because of this lack of capacity, this lack of willingness, this lack of support. It has that knock-on effect in our court system, doesn't it?
Yes, no, absolutely. Where courts are probably overburdened with less serious cases. So one is to say, is there not another way of dealing with cases that are not regarded as very serious? For example, mediation, where you're involving a matter of common assault, but where the capacity to be able to deal with your more serious cases. And obviously there's problems with regard to bringing cases to court. You know, one has a case set down for trial today and something happens. There have been problems with load shedding. There have been problems throughout the COVID pandemic with having matters heard. Those are issues that obviously have caused a lot of delays with cases. But the problem is that the capacity, having the right equipment to quickly investigate a case. You know, the trick is get in there early, do your investigation. A case coming to court 5 years after the event is a problem. Witnesses can't remember what took place, and then there could be a problem with trying to gather all the evidence if the investigation takes place a long time after the incident.
To use one high-profile court case example is the police officer who was first on the scene for the Senzo Mayiwe court case as well, saying in one of his comments that it was 8 years ago and he can't necessarily remember exactly what happened. So, William, where do we try and fix this, though? Is this a monetary issue? Is this a staffing issue? Or can you not separate the two when it comes to day-to-day crimes?
Well, look, obviously it's probably a bit of a combination. So you need the money to appoint the right staff. You need the money to appoint the right forensic investigators, and that you don't have a situation where your well-qualified police officers leave the police force. You need to retain them. Even ex-police officers, those that have retired, could be amalgamated in the whole system to use their experience. I think with prosecuting cases, the issue should be look at getting private legal practitioners involved. If the MPA cannot, prosecute the matters quickly enough, if there isn't the capacity, use private investigators. That might be the situation. They are trying to do that, but I do not think it's being done swiftly and enough to be able to kind of get cases to court quicker and make sure you have a high success rate. So you've got to encourage police to get out there and to investigate matters. And yes, the pay is an issue. The equipment they're using has to be sorted out. It's a monetary issue. And looking at better training. You know, my view is there are many police officers who really do an excellent job, but there are also many who are not well trained. So a witness who gets into the witness stand as a forensic expert needs to know what to testify about. And even if it happened 8 years ago, he should have made sufficient notes about what happened and have his whole crime scene investigation at hand with photographs and with all the necessary plans that he drew up at the time. So, it is a long time ago. One does forget certain things. But if you've got your statements at hand, you can refresh your memory and you will be able to testify. But it should not take 8 years for a witness to come to court. And many, let's say, private individuals don't want to hang around in the corridors of the court because they just, have to come back time and time again. And when they come back again, there's a lack of interest, and they sometimes don't come back to court. So, you've got to encourage people to come to court to report crime. Many people say, well, I'm not reporting crime because I'm going to have to sit in court for years before my evidence is presented to the court. So you've got to look at getting out there, encouraging the public, report crime, encouraging the police to, up their game, give them the facility, give them the equipment to be able to do that. And I think that might go a long way to solving crime. Also, you look at the community. You've got to get the community involved, not getting out there and have hysteria, but giving information to the police to be able to follow through with their particular investigation. And obviously one needs to improve, community areas. A lot of problems are social problems with regard particularly to your petty crimes. So they've got to be solved. I mean, over the years, we've been talking about this, but I don't see, much sort of result with trying to uplift and improve communities. It still remains the same. Gangs are out there, and you need to offer the community something else, uplift the community, better housing and all of that. So it is a real problem, and I think we've been talking about this for so long, and we don't see effective results. So it's got to be sorted.
It does. It's the policing on the ground which all of this stems from, Williams. What I'm taking away from what we just spoke about this morning has that knock-on effect further down at the police station, in the courtroom, and then the perception that police aren't doing their jobs. Criminal law expert William Booth, I always appreciate your time in joining us on ENCA this morning. It's part of our focus. It's part of our viewer question this morning. High-profile cases versus day-to-day court issues. Where should the priority be? Should there be a priority of one over the other?